minute. Just let people come in here. We don't have to start just yet.
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
What have you been watching
Okay.
mainly?
Man, I'm not really watching any individual names in
Yeah.
specific. I mainly just watch
Focusing on the platform.
that, and I mainly watch indices right now, just SPY, and then you know
Right.
I do a lot of analysis on SPX on Twitter and whatnot.
Right. So for everyone that's joining up, you guys know that we love QuantData's platform. We post a lot of screenshots and use a lot of the data that we are able to capture from the platform. That gives us, a good idea of where market movers are putting money, where they're moving money in and out of, where there's a lot of interest and so forth. So, for those of you who don't know, Andrew, I was wondering if you could just provide a brief explanation of what the QuantData platform provides to customers.
Wait a minute, Sabin.
And
Hey, I don't want to interrupt you, but we have to remember this is a market recap, and I want to go over
we
stuff first,
we're
and then we'll dive into
we're gonna
Andrew's stuff.
do the QuantData stuff first. We're gonna do the QuantData stuff first.
Yeah, I can.
We're gonna do the quant. Yeah.
I can give a quick brief overview of sort of what QuantData is. So basically,
Yeah.
it's an options order flow platform, and I can share my screen if you want.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, let me do that. Okay, just share the screen. Let me know if you guys can see that. Can you all see the platform?
Yes.
Yeah. So everyone, check out Andrew's screen share, and you can see the QuantData platform. So if you just want to give a brief explanation about
Yeah, of
it, that would
course.
be great.
Yeah, so basically, QuantData, it's an order flow platform. So the main feed you're seeing here is our options order flow. So basically, we're licensed by different exchanges to receive their data feeds, and then using those data feeds, we create different tools and we consolidate the data to accomplish different things with the data that we receive from the exchanges. And our feeds are in real time, so these trades, as soon as they're reported to the exchanges, we receive those trades and we display them. So using this data, there's obviously a lot you can do. There's different tools you can create. And so basically on the platform, we have, different pages with these different tools. And I'm not going to go too much into, you know, specifics of the platform because I know there's a few things we're going to go over here in the chat. But that's pretty much what it is. It's basically a data analytics platform that allows you to leverage market data to, gain an edge in. It's really geared towards options traders specifically.
Jake's like, yeah.
And if yes, go ahead, Andrew. Sorry, people just had their mics unmuted. We muted them. Good to go.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so I mean that's pretty much what it is as far as how you can use it, right? Um, there's different ways people use it depending on what their strategies are. Obviously, the most common user on our platform are the people that trade short term, so people who day trade and swing trade. And typically they'll see like some large repeated activity come in on the tape, and they might have a set of filters that they have set to filter the order flow for their watch list. And then they're looking at repeated activity that's coming in for those particular names that they're watching. So if we see like an influx of trades on, Apple, for example, and we see a ton of out of the money, short dated Apple contracts coming in on the tape, that might indicate to us that the market is concentrating towards let's say those contracts were calls, um, and they're being purchased. We might see that on the tape and we might see that concentration on calls which would indicate to us that maybe they know something, especially if that amount that's coming in has a large value, right? If there's a lot of money coming into a particular short dated contract, it might tell us a little about what they think is going to happen. So that's really what the order flow is used for. It's used to identify what we call smart money trades. Or these big trades that come in into the market and that have the ability to impact the underlying. That's really what the order flow is about. And obviously there's different things we can do with that. And I don't know. Are you gonna? I know you had some questions prepared. So are you gonna ask those questions, or do you want me to go on more about the platform itself?
Um, I mean, we have a couple questions like just written down, but I was wondering if you could just provide. I mean, I think most people understand the idea, of what the data shows, but could you just give an example of like, a time when you saw, a lot of order flow, a lot of like sell flow, for example, came in, and then shortly after you see, a stock falls a significant amount.
Yeah,
Um,
of course. So the biggest thing I use for identifying like that exact scenario you described is the heat map. So I'll open up the heat map here. And I'll open it up on SPY. So this is the options heat map. Basically, what this is it's the it's a real-time heat map, so this is updating as orders come in into the market. And it's all these expiration dates here. And it's basically the chain, right? It's a dynamically updating heat map of the options chain for whatever ticker you're filtering by. So basically how one could use this to maybe identify a potential move in a stock is by identifying where the concentration of activity is going, right? So like today, for example, you'll see earlier today, we had like a huge concentration at 383. So that means, and this is for the October 28th expiration, which is today. So there was a huge call concentration at this particular strike for today, and this is the net premium of that contract. So basically, what you can use this for is like if there's a big concentration of calls surrounding the current price. Let's say the price of SPY earlier today was around 383, right? If there's a big concentration of activity, and this is all green for the short dated expirations, then it's very likely that the options activity is going to impact the underlying of the stock, and we're going to have those short-term price movements to support the options information. And that's typically what you'll see. So, like if the current price is sitting at 388, like it is right now, and we start seeing a big influx of calls come into 390 or 391, typically what you would see is the price start to push up into that 389 and 390 zone before something might happen. As we start pushing up, we might see surrounding cells start decreasing because more put flow is coming in, which shows us that the market might be now changing sides and betting that we're gonna reverse and drop. So it's very dynamic in the fact that it's updating constantly, right? Like right now, prices at 388, right? If we got some negative catalyst right now that impacted the market greatly, we would see immediately these strikes, these out of the money put strikes, have a large amount of flow come into them. And it would be very apparent that the market is starting to concentrate towards puts. So that's really one example of how you can use the order flow to maybe make a directional prediction. But that's pretty much when you look at like the raw order flow, the options heat map I just showed you is basically just a consolidation of all the orders coming in for that particular ticker, right? And then if you're seeing interesting activity on a particular contract, like um, you know today the 383 had some really interesting activity. It was over 18 million in net premium. You might go back to the options order flow, filter out this contract using either the quick filters or the filter groups here. You can create some granular filters that allows you to filter for that specific contract. But that's just, one way you can use the options heat map to sort of um, just learn more about where the market is concentrating in real time, right? And that's really
Right.
what it's used for,
So
is identifying
would
that
you say
activity.
that the heat map it's a more friendly version of understanding the flow, like incoming flow?
Yeah, I think, like, reading individual trades is difficult and it's time consuming, right? Because,
Right.
like, there's so many things and so many factors that you need to consider. Like, you need to consider whether it's in the money, whether it's out of the money, whether it's on the ask side, whether it's on the bid side, what trade type. Like, there's so much information that you have to consider.
Mhm.
So what I like about the heat map is it's like, um it's more of like a big picture thing, right? Like,
Right.
if there's a big set of, concentration on the short dated contracts to the call side, more than likely the price is going to move in that direction. And obviously it's not going to happen 100% of the time, but if
It's a good
billions of dollars are
indicator.
being put into the call side, like, it's very obvious that the market's going to follow that information. And it's not like, this isn't, some like hunch or some, you know, just random indicator. Options information does have price predicting capability. It's been proven in empirical research. So it is a useful tool that you can add to your arsenal of tools, right? You don't want to just use this, but it is good for identifying where the activity is. I mean, even like if you're just in a trade, it's just good to know what's happening on the chain, right? Like, if you're in calls for Apple or whatever, um, and a majority of the market is positioning in puts, um, you might want to look at the heat map and just try to figure out why that's happening and maybe how you can adjust your position to prepare for that. So that's, really where the heat map can come into play, is just identifying where that activity is, right? In using that information, it's not the only thing you should use, but again, it's just another, piece of information that you could use to strengthen your confidence in a particular trade. But yeah, I mean
It was
that's
interesting to see on yeah, it was just interesting to see, like, on September for on, exporting chips,
Savage,
so
you're
that
lagging a
obviously
bit.
affected Nvidia, AMD.
you cut out for a second. I didn't hear
You
the
hear me?
first part.
Just on September 1st, the day Nvidia fell around 7%, QuantData's flow picked up a lot of dark pool prints, a lot of big sell orders, and shortly thereafter, we saw Nvidia fall on some pretty big news. Would you say that would you say that your platform is a good way to predict stock movement, or is it a representation of current stock movement, or is it a combination of both?
Yeah, so like, undoubtedly you can observe what's happening using the platform, right? Like, you can see where the activity is concentrating. You can see what's happening. That's objective, right? Like, these are real trades. We have the full market tape. That's what's coming in. For observing like large price moves before they happen, that's what we're trying to accomplish through the tools, right? So it's definitely a combination of both. And there's definitely particular situations in which the platform is going to be more beneficial than others, just because of the nature of how the options market works. So for example, like negative news, you're likely to see whenever there's a negative catalyst, before that catalyst comes out, um, it's typical for options volume to increase. And the reason for that is because um, the the transaction cost of shorting in the equity market is a lot higher than just trading with the leverage of options. So, big institutional investors, when they have some price predicting or, some piece of information that makes them a sophisticated trader in the market, um, and that piece of information is negative on the underlying, right? So it's like a negative catalyst. They're more likely to trade options than to short the stock, and that's because of the transaction costs that I just mentioned. But so when you're predicting like these large price movements, it's actually pretty common for the options volume to increase before those large price movements. So that's one of the things that we're trying to work on and trying to improve is like identifying where and when that large volume's coming in, um, so we can sort of maybe prepare for a potential catalyst that is to come. And that's, I mean,
Right.
that's really the goal of any strategy, right? Is to try to predict some sort of information that's going to give you an edge.
Right.
But with certainty, you can look at what's happening, um, and what we're trying to accomplish is so that you can increase your
Hmm.
probability of predicting what is going to happen.
Right.
So,
So obviously, I know quant data is, rooted in the actual use of the platform and, learning how to utilize it properly. So as a trader, what are some ways that you would suggest or, you know, provide examples of ways that you could add the quant data platform to your trading or investing strategy other than, like you had mentioned, short-term, short-term trading.
right, yeah. So our platform has a lot of different features, and it can be helpful to a lot of different kinds of traders. So answering that question is a little bit difficult, but the thing that I would, suggest is if you're a trader, right? Most technical traders are going to use some sort of levels, right? Some sort of support and resistance levels or supply and demand levels. And one of the one of our tools is our dark pool levels. So any of the off exchange trades, we display all off exchange trades in real time, and then we aggregate all of those trades to show those levels. And they're basically just levels where there was high volume off exchange. So those levels can be used as support and resistance levels, and that's something that really, any trader can use, right? Are those
Could you,
levels?
excuse me for interrupting, but could you just go a little bit deeper into dark pool, um, like dark pool prints and how a trader could use them? I know you just mentioned it.
Yeah, so basically, dark pool trades, they're all. Let me go to the dashboard. So we display all dark pool trades here. Basically, what dark pool trades are off exchange trades. So in the market, the there's the exchanges, and then anything that happens off of the exchange is considered off exchange trading. And then there's a whole subcategory of alternative trading systems, and then it just branches out into a array of different trading systems. But at the, very top, like, level, you have your on exchange, which is like, your Nasdaq, New York Stock Exchange, CBOE, just any stock exchange. And then you have your off exchange, which are your dark pools, your alternative trading systems, your ECNs, and all of that. So it varies, but around 40 to 50% of trades in this is for equities. Around 40 to 50% of equity trades execute off exchange. And what that means is that these off exchange trades um, are less transparent because that's the whole point of executing off exchange. You don't have to share a market, and a market being the bid and ask price, right? So they have all these trades that are reporting to the tape off exchange, and sometimes institutions will use these off exchange trading systems to mask certain massive trades that they're entering. So if they're entering like let's say $1 billion trade on SPY, they're not just going to throw that to Nasdaq to the New York Stock Exchange because they don't want people to see that in the lit market and then take advantage of that trade on the order book, because then what happens is high frequency traders can take advantage of that quote on the order book, and then the institution that submitted that large trade does not get the best price. So they'll execute off exchange where they can negotiate prices um, sort of within their own market, right? And they'll use these institutional dark pools to accomplish that. So we display all of those trades. All of those trades are still required to be reported to the tape. There's just less information that comes along with them because of the nature of dark pools and how they operate. So we display all of those levels right here in this feed, and this is a real-time feed. You'll see they're coming in now even. So basically, when we get like a large, like right here, there's a $95 million trade on SPY at 341. Throughout the day, you'll see a bunch of large trades come in on a particular name, like SPY, Apple, or whatever. And the aggregation of these levels can be used as support resistance. So if we go over to the left-hand side, and we go to the historical dark pool and dark pool levels tab, we can search for a ticker, let's say SPY, and then we can select a date, and we'll just go today. So we'll see today, like the 379.70 level had 3.98 billion reported at it today. So this level might be a level that you want to chart up and use as support and resistance level depending on where the current price is. And let's say like you have a 5-day, 5-minute chart open or whatever, and you would go 5 days out, and you would chart the biggest level. So 384.82 was actually a big level yesterday. It was actually where we rejected at the top yesterday and reversed down for pretty much the rest of the day at like I think it was 10:40 um 10:40 a.m. Eastern time. We rejected at 384.82, and the rest of the day we just came down. So that was so these levels are just basically large levels that institutions are trading at throughout the day.
Yeah,
And
makes sense.
they can be really useful for as support and resistance levels. And whether you're day trader, swing trader, or whatever, you can go further out. You can hone in on just one day, really whatever fits your specific strategy.
Right. All right. Well, that's it for my questions. Is there anything that you didn't get to mention that you'd like to?
Yeah. So
And if not,
yeah. So for the mostly everything we talked about are for day traders, swing traders, and maybe you'll use levels as a long-term trader, but not really, right? You're really just looking at like fundamental information, earnings, and all of that stuff. So we do have stock reports, which they're like 10-page reports, and they're updated every day for most tickers. If it's like a penny stock that doesn't have a lot of information, we won't include a report for it. But for most stocks, we have a 10-page report. It pretty much breaks down everything about a company and it ranks it on a scale of 1 to 10. So you'll see like earnings information, just all fundamental information. You'll see like evaluation. And then at the bottom of these reports, there's 2 pages where it describes everything that's in these reports. So for your long-term traders or your value traders, this is going to be a good tool for you to get a really good overview of everything that is happening on a particular ticker, right? So this was one thing somebody pointed this out yesterday that this is one of the more underappreciated portions of our platform. So That was one thing because I know you asked about like how maybe other different types of traders could use the platform, and that's one of the ways. So there's a bunch of different tools and different ways to use the platform, but it really just depends what you're trying to accomplish.
Makes sense. Do any of the listeners have any questions? If you do, throw them in the chat quickly. Um, but if not, I think we can turn over to market recap, and Austin, you can begin. Take it away.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't need to
Thank
go
you.
right into market
Thank
recap.
you.
I mean,
Yeah, no, I mean,
we can
we
continue the
obviously,
conversation.
Andrew, would love to have you participate in the conversation. Thank you for answering those questions for us. I think, a lot of members have been asking about the platform more as we've been using it more and using one of the newer features, the options heat map has been a favorite of, a few of our staff members. And I know some
Mhm.
members use it as well.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. The heat map has really grown on me myself. I mean, I really like the heat map, and a lot of our members really like the heat map as well. So that's been a great tool. But yeah, I mean, if anybody has any questions, obviously they can ask you guys first. And
Question for you, Andrew. Um,
yeah, sure.
as a person who's like, I mean, I would consider you like the ultimate for like people who are familiar with quant data, right? Because you created it, or maybe the devs or whatever. But
Right.
from all the data that you're getting right now, do you have like, could you say if the market is more bullish or bearish? Moving into November, like what's the outlook? Like, what are you seeing from quant data? Are you getting any hints of maybe what we could see to come from the market, or not? Not quite yet.
hmm Yeah. So for me, um, and for the data that we have, it's primarily for the options market, right? So we're we're looking at what's happening in the options market, and the options market is obviously derived from the stock market, but at the end of the day, it's different, right? So the activity in the options market can be pretty volatile, and obviously the stock market itself is volatile, but options even more so. So when looking out to like mid-November or you know
I mean, even like
December.
next, I'm yeah, no time like specifically, but just like I didn't know if you had like an outlook from the data that could suggest like, yeah, maybe we should watch out for this soon or something like that along those lines.
Yeah, I mean it. So honestly, like the thing for me is like I'll identify like some catalysts, and then I'll look at how the market's reacting before that catalyst. So the next, obviously the next catalyst is going to be the next Fed rate hike, which is going to be the decision of whether or not the Fed pivots or not. And really anything like after that point is unknown. So it's not really like even the activity that exists right now in the market, it's not like we can't really make a reasonable prediction about direction because that catalyst can change the outlook of the entire market itself, right? So like, what I like to do is like present two scenarios, and then these are the two scenarios that could happen based on the activity we have. But in terms of like actually choosing a direction, um, there isn't really, much objectivity to it other than an opinion. So I mean, like I can share my opinion, but it doesn't really hold much merit because those catalysts can greatly affect ultimately
Yeah,
what
and
happens in the
I don't think
market.
anybody's expecting you to have a crystal ball or be like spot on with your predictions or anything like that. But I do think
Right.
people would be interested to hear your opinion on like the outlook of the market. Again, none of it's
Yeah.
financial advice, just your
Sure.
opinion for fun. Yeah, speculation.
So basically, what I'm saying, and this is based off of options activity, we had for the past few months, or few weeks, we've had very elevated put volume, right? Nature of the options market, we're always skewed towards the put side. There's typically more activity on the put side because puts are, like I mentioned, used to hedge and used for like downside um, activity, right? when there's like
Yep.
negative information
Absolutely.
in the stock market, institutions are more likely to use options as a mean to either hedge against their long positions or as a means to play that downside activity because of the transaction costs of shorting in the stock market. But even with that in mind, the put volume has been elevated for the past few months, and over the past few days, um, there really has been a change in that volume, at least from what I'm seeing myself. So I don't know if that's just part of this reversal right now and if we're going to have a next leg down. But I think if we do have a next leg down, it's really going to be completely dependent on what the Fed decides to do. I don't really have like a preference for what should happen or what will happen. Um, but for me, it's really just like identifying, okay, sort of what is the options market doing, and maybe, going into the rate hike, like what is the plan moving
Right. Like
forward?
what are
And I would
people
like,
speculating? Yeah.
yeah, and I would like for us to, obviously continue and just make new highs, because I prefer a strong economy than a weak one. But really anything could happen. But as far as like what the activity is showing, I am seeing that shift in, a decrease in input volume. But that can change in a matter of days, right? Like if the Fed, if we get any sort of inflation numbers or the Fed comes out and decides they're not going to pivot
Right.
or they're going to increase rate hikes by some number that's
Well, we
greater
have
than what the
FOMC
market's
next week,
expecting.
I'm pretty sure, which who knows what that catalyst is going to be like, right?
Yeah, I
If
think
I'm
it's what, like
not
November
mistaken.
2nd,
Yeah,
something like
it
that.
should be. Yeah, I'm losing track of time. I don't even know what day of the week it is half the time. Let's see here. Yeah, November 2nd. It's a Wednesday.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I suppose that will likely be a catalyst. You would assume a catalyst to something, right? Doesn't necessarily have to be bullish or bearish or whatever, but you would assume some volatility would come along with that. Great.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see, like, how they're reacting to what's happening, in terms of, inflation and what their plan is moving forward. So,
Totally. Yeah.
it's
Um,
yeah, it's like, you can place a directional bet, then that's fine. Just make sure you're adapting to what the market is showing you, and you should be fine.
Absolutely. We do have a question in chat. Can we see options data for November 2nd, the FOMC day? Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he could pull it up. I'm not sure how meaningful it will be because at the end of the day, nobody really knows what the Fed's going to do. But I'm sure there's people placing their bets. I'm sure.
Yeah, so for, he's asking for, like, November 2nd.
Yeah, the FOMC day. If there's anything abnormal or
Yeah, I mean, right now for the short dated contracts, you'll typically see like a change in volume a day before, or a few days before.
right,
But right now, I mean, November 2nd, from today's activity, right? Because this is just today's activity. Um, it's obviously going to be bullish because of today. I've got 19 million on 395. Um, but yeah, I mean, this could change pretty
right,
rapidly over the next
right.
few
Because the
days.
expiration's very, very soon. Yeah,
Yeah. But if you look at this from like big picture, obviously today was a very bullish day. And I mean, you see, even as you go out to like November 7th, we're still seeing that bullish activity. And this is pretty unusual in our current circumstances because typically, even if it's a bullish day, we'll still see people are placing bearish bets further out. But today we have pretty bullish activity across the board.
yeah. So perhaps we could, make the assumption to some degree that some people, market participants, are looking for higher prices in the short term. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I
that's
would like
very
to
interesting.
say so, but again, this can change at any given point.
Pivot on a
Um,
dime.
so yeah, so it's important to, keep an eye on it, and we'll see sort of how today's OI is um over this weekend, and we'll have some analysis for today's OI and sort of see where all those new open contracts are. Um, but yeah, I mean, like, options activity is very interesting because there's so many, like, different things that you need to consider in order to read it. So it's, placing like a directional bet just based off of
Flow.
what you
Yeah.
think is going to happen is always a risky thing. So I like to be able to see sort of where the market's positioning itself, and I think like the market itself has shown that it has a tendency to move towards those levels where there is a lot of people focused on them and where there's a lot of money at, because the market really moves where the money's at. So
Yep,
that's
and that's what the
yeah.
heat map has been wonderful for, right? You see what's lit up on the heat map typically intraday. We'll see. I mean, the people who use it, I know Woj uses it all the time. He's like, keep an eye out for this strike, and then next thing you know, price just slingshots up there. So yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, and there's
There's
there's a bunch of different theories out there about like strike pinning and just different ideas where like the stock market has a tendency to close at the or next to the strike where there's the most activity, right? And there's all these different theories and different studies behind them, but it's just interesting to see like the the general summary out of all of that research is just to watch where the action is, and there's different ways to do that, and that's what the research is studying. Um, but if anything, the research shows that where the activity is where you should be watching. So that's
Yeah.
and we're trying to create some more tools. We've got some tools in development as well that are going to help people read the heat map more effectively. So we're excited to eventually release those in the coming days and weeks.
absolutely. And we do have another question, and this isn't too hard of a question, but instead of me giving the answer, it'd probably be better for you to do so. What's the difference inherently, as simplified as possible, between a block trade and a sweep trade?
Yeah, so when you're looking at order flow, right? Basically how the market works is when an options order is submitted to the market, there's a rule in the market that says that the order has to fill at the national best bid and offer, which is called the NBBO, right? Basically, there's I think there's 16 exchanges. I don't know. It recently changed because a new exchange filed. I don't know if they got approved or not. But there's 16 or 17 exchanges right now. Um, and every exchange is its own market. And a market is the bid and the ask. It's the price that you can buy or sell at, right? So when a trade gets submitted to the market, an options trade, equity is going to be different because you have on exchange and off exchange. But when you submit an options trade to the market, there's 16 different bid and offers in the market. And, by regulation, your contract is supposed to fill at the exchange that's offering the best price, right? So if you're buying contracts, you're supposed to fill at the exchange that has the best corresponding price for that contract. And what happens is the best price at some particular exchange, that particular exchange might not have, like, let's say you want to buy 10 contracts, right? That exchange might only be offering 8 contracts. So what happens is your order has to split up, and 8 contracts will fill at the best price because that's what they're offering, and then your 2 contracts are going to fill at the next exchange that has the next best price. So what happens is when like a large order is submitted, and let's say there's 2,000 contracts, right? Your order might fill across 4 or 5 different exchanges so that it's filled in its entirety, right? And on the tape, if it's filled across 5 exchanges, that's going to show as 5 different, essentially 5 different orders on the tape. When in reality, you submitted one trade, right? You submitted one 2,000 contract trade, but it got split up into 5 independent orders so that it could execute at the best prices. So what a sweep is we take that broken up order and we put it back together, and then we show you the full trade. So in the situation where there was the 2,000 contract trade, what we've done there is we've looked at the tape, and we've identified, okay, this trade is part of this trade, which is part of this trade, which is part of this trade, which is part of this trade. And we take those 5 trades that execute across those different exchanges, and we put them back together and display it as one trade, right? And that's what a sweep trade is. So it's a multi-exchange order that's sweeped across the order book, right? Um, so that's what a sweep order is. A block order is just one order that executed at that one exchange. So if there's a 2,000 contract order that you submit to the market, and let's say Nasdaq is offering 2,000 contracts at the best price. Your order executes at Nasdaq. That shows on the tape as one 2,000 contract trade. We just display that same trade. So that's the difference between a sweep and a block. The big difference is a sweep is broken up across multiple exchanges, and then we put it back together and show it as one trade. Whereas a block order is one trade that reports to the tape and it's executed
Right. And
um, across that one exchange.
yes, and you would say, that's the primary reason why sweeps are probably more significant to pay attention to. I know a lot of people that read options flow kind of like some of them will uncheck the blocks and they don't look at them. I don't know if you do that. I know a lot, the golden sweep is kind of what everyone's looking for, but yeah.
Yeah, so it depends like what you're looking for. So for example, like I won't exclude the blocks, but if you're looking for like and I also want to throw in there's sweeps, blocks, and splits. What splits are, they're the same thing as sweeps, but instead of filling at different exchanges, they fill at the same exchange. So the exchange will have like five different, quotes up there or whatever, or five different trades that you're trading against, and then it fills and executes at each one of those. So it still reports as five trades on the tape, but it executed at one exchange. So that's a split. Um, but yeah, as far as like excluding blocks or what is more important, it depends what you're looking for. Because you can argue that like there's the intermarket sweep order, right, which is actually one of the trade types. Um, and the thing about an intermarket sweep order is that it doesn't have to follow the NBBO regulation. So basically, the intermarket sweep order allows a trader to fill quicker because it allows them to take a worse price but execute faster, right? And if they're doing that, a if they're willing to not take the best price for faster execution, it means that they know that the market's going to have some impact right then and there, and they want to get in as quickly as possible. So that's one advantage to, looking at intermarket sweep orders. But then in the situation of block orders, you might see several repeated block orders of a massive size. And that also might be significant. So it really just depends. Like, are you looking for urgency? Are you looking for, size, imbalance? Like, it depends what you're really looking for. I will say that at least from a research paper that I was reading recently, out of the money call orders that are opening transactions tend to have the strongest price predicting information. So, filtering and looking for out of the money contracts um, might be a good thing to do if you're looking for, repeated purchases or whatever. You might look for opening um, purchases that are out of the money. That's just another example of maybe one thing you could filter by and look for specifically. But yeah, I mean, like, there's no to answer your question directly. There's no like one thing that's objectively better than the other. It depends what you're looking for and what you're trying to accomplish.
Wonderful answer. Thank you for that. Um, Ben has a question, I guess, via the members that we have here that we kind of get asked often. And I think you already touched upon this a little bit talking about the other stuff, but is there any new features we could perhaps look forward to in Quant Data? I know you said maybe you're looking to work on the heat map to make that a little bit more digestible. Is there anything new features coming that we can look forward to?
Yeah, so there's one new feature we're working on. I don't have a estimated date of when that will be released just yet. But basically, it's a tool that allows you to like look at a particular contract and look at that put and call activity, similar to how you can see like the activity on the heat map. So you can see like that net activity over time because the heat map's the current day.
Oh,
So
cool.
we're
So
building
like,
this new
nice.
yeah. So we're building this new tool that allows you to analyze it over time and compare it against the stock price. So it should be pretty beneficial.
So would
We're
that
still
end up
working
looking
on
like
it.
a chart, like with a X and a Y axis with price and time? Or
Yeah, it's gonna
okay,
it's gonna be a chart. It's probably gonna have two y axes, one for premium,
okay,
and then one for premium, and then one for just price, like
right,
of the
right,
underlying.
right, right.
But yeah, and you'll be able to like see the activity in real time, and then you'll also be able to analyze it over time. So you'll be able to see like, okay, on you know, starting out, it's going to be a lot more basic, but we do have plans to expand it. But
Hey, yeah,
you'll be able to see the activity sort of similar to the heat map, and used with the heat map, it's going to be beneficial.
that's gonna be super awesome. I'm excited to use that when once that gets released on the platform. Um, I have one question for you that I gotta get in there before we wrap this up. Is there gonna be any integration or like acknowledgement or whatever of cryptocurrency on Quant Data ever, or is it always going to be focused on options? Like I know that there's other markets. I didn't know if Quant Data was going to maybe sometime in the future try to tackle those in some way. Didn't
Right.
know if that's kind of in your future, but was just curious.
Yeah. So we actually, I get this question quite a bit. Will we expand into crypto? We we actually did dabble in crypto a little bit in the past. We were going to create like an order flow similar to what we do for the options, but for crypto. But we decided that like we should probably place a focus on options specifically instead of expanding, because I think there's still a lot that needs to be done in options first before we expand out.
Right, tackle the
So
beast
that's
first, and then take care of the
yeah,
side quests. Yep.
exactly. I don't think there's really a platform out there right now that really takes full advantage of the data that exists. Um, and there's some great platforms out there right now, but I really do think there's still a bunch of opportunity, and a lot of really neat tools that institutional traders have that retail traders do not have.
And that was like, if I'm not mistaken, the original mission of Quant Data to like kind of give retail traders that institutional level analysis. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's always been the goal, and that's I was, at the New York Stock Exchange taking in some feedback from execution from there about how we can implement some tools that help them. And the big thing for me was always if we create a tool, it's going to be accessible to everybody, not just to the execution firm that we're creating it for. So if you look on our dashboard, we have exchange notifications. That was a tool that was requested by the execution firm that I was working with. So that's one example. Our goal is to really um, create tools that everybody can use, and really try to bridge that gap. And honestly, it's it's not an easy thing to do because the data is extremely expensive. But we're managing to do our best with what we have. So we're pretty content with what we have so far, and we've had some really good feedback, so we're content with that.
Yeah, and a lot of good feedback from our members here at OBR Investing. I know a lot of people use Quant Data, and it's a huge part of their trading, right? Maybe some more than others, but nonetheless, there's people who are actively, using Quant Data as a part of their strategy. So pretty cool what you guys are doing. Congratulations for that.
Yeah,
I'm
I
excited to see the
appreciate that.
future. Yeah, and I really appreciate you coming by to talk today. That was really cool. A lot of good insight on options flow. Always good to see that. We're not, I wouldn't say none of us are options flow experts like you. So, whenever we get to hear your take on some things and how the platform is evolving, it's always a good time.
Yeah, and one thing, I appreciate that, and obviously, I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to come and speak in front of your members, and I really do appreciate that. One thing I did want to mention is like learning how to use options order flow can seem very overwhelming at first, especially since there's not many resources out there on the topic itself. You might find a few YouTube videos here and there, but most of them are not really the most informational. A lot of other platforms will only include the ask side and not the bid side. So there's, you know, it can be really overwhelming at first taking in all this information. And that's honestly why I think like if you're gonna start out with order flow, um, starting with the heat map is a great way to get an introduction to order flow because it introduces you to the idea that like okay, there's activity coming in here with just color, right? You see like okay, it's getting really bright green here. That means there's a lot of flow moving into this strike, and it's very simple to read. Like you don't have to overthink it. So and then like as you start familiarizing yourself with that concept, and you could start expanding outward and experimenting with open interest tools and eventually the raw order flow data itself. But that was really something I wanted to put out there is that like it doesn't need to be overwhelming at first. Like you don't need to learn every tool on the platform because it's just not reasonable, right? So just starting out with uh, one or two tools like the heat map and the dark pool levels, it could give you a good fundamental understanding of like how to use order flow and how that can help you trade. And honestly, I think this is a more recent thing I've been telling people is like start out with the heat map and then maybe as you learn more, you can start focusing on the raw order flow feed itself. And I've had some really good feedback from people who did it that way.
Yeah, it seems like, just like with anything when it comes to trading, you can overwhelm yourself pretty quickly, especially if you're new. But don't let that emotion of feeling overwhelmed, prevent you from continuing forward, right? Do what Andrew said. Start with the simple things that you can kind of get a grasp on, and pick away at it, right? Anything you do in life, you're not going to fully grasp immediately. The same thing applies to options flow. So, yeah. Give it a chance, guys. If you haven't messed with options flow before, definitely go check it out. I would go check out Quant Data. Do some research on options flow. It is a very very powerful tool. And just remember, it can be overwhelming, but if people like me and Andrew can kind of understand it, then I'm sure you can too, right? A lot of smart people in there. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just like at the end of the day, it's difficult, but if you chip at it every single day, just a little bit, you'll learn a lot over time, and that's really what it's about, right? I mean, the same thing goes with like technical analysis, right? You don't just wake up one day and you understand every
oh
indicator out
god,
there,
oh
right?
god, no.
So it takes time to build these skills, and once you build them, they can be really beneficial. And just you know, if you're not even like predicting price movement, which you don't need to do, if you're just understanding where the activity is, that's going to help you stay in or get out of a trade, right? So there's there's different ways you can use it, and if you're using it differently from somebody else, it doesn't mean that you're using it wrong, right? And that's something that I also like to stress is like I've learned from people using our platform as well. They'll message me and share some market alpha that they used on our platform that helped them make a decision. And then I study that decision or that filter group that they used. I'm like, wow, this is this is interesting, right? And then I look more into it. So there's so many different ways that you can use it. It's really about just understanding the fundamentals of like this is where the activity is. Like I should probably focus on this, and that's really where I would start.
Wonderful, Andrew. Well, we appreciate
Yeah.
you stopping by. We've held you captive here for an hour. I mean, you could stay as long as you'd like, answer as many questions as you'd like, but I mean, geez, you might be here all night at that rate.
Austin.
Yeah, go ahead,
Hey,
Andrew.
Andrew. Hey, Andrew. It's Rich. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming in. I couldn't say how much I enjoyed that conversation. I'm sure the members got a lot of value out of it. And, couldn't be a better way to end off the week. Just want to say thank you. And we really appreciate it. If you want, I think it would be great for the members. Drop your Instagram handle and Quant Data's in case anyone wants to go check you guys out and stay up to date whenever you do make those new updates and features. That would be awesome. And hope you just have a great weekend and stay in touch. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Yeah, of course. I appreciate you guys having me on again, and I know I don't really remember how long I was supposed to be on, but I apologize if I went over. Um,
Oh no, man, there's no time limit. You're welcome to talk here as long as you'd like. So,
okay, yeah, because I always like to make sure that I don't go over, but I wasn't too sure. I probably should have asked. But yeah, no, I appreciate you guys having me on. If anybody has any questions, I'm very responsive, and you guys are also very responsive too. So I'm sure they can ask you guys, and if it's some crazy question that um, you guys don't know the answer to, or maybe I don't even know the answer to, I'll make sure I find somebody who knows the answer to that question. And we could have that answered. So if you like have any questions, and you're gonna have questions, just make sure they're asked, whether it's in the OBR chat, whether it's anywhere. Just make sure you ask questions, because that's ultimately how you're gonna learn specific things that are not on the internet, right? Like everything about order flow is not out there. There's some things that you have to learn by experiencing it or watching it, or reading research on it. So just make sure you ask questions, because it can get you an answer a lot faster than you looking for that yourself. So just want to put that out there. And yeah, I guess I'll drop my Twitter in the stock chat. I
Yeah,
post some
just throw it in
analysis
whatever
there.
chat.
If people have questions, feel free to reach out at any point. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think you guys have an affiliate link, so that's going to give them a better deal than anything we have on our site. So if anybody decides they want to sign up now or in the future, you guys can. I think you guys have that link somewhere, so they can
Yep, we do.
contact you guys. But yeah, if you have
Absolutely.
any questions, I'm available. I'm sure the OBR guys are available at any point. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to sit in and listen. I know it can be kind of boring at times listening to a lot of this, especially like the structured information about dark pools and whatnot. It can get a little heavy, but I do appreciate you guys taking the time to sit and listen in.
Absolutely, Andrew. We appreciate you. Thanks for stopping by.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Take care.
All
Have a great
right, take it easy,
weekend.
folks. Everybody enjoy their weekend. Catch you on Monday. Maybe we'll get some more volatility. That's crazy. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Oh
All
wow,
right.
I didn't share my account. Let me.
Yeah, I think you shared
should've-
the Twitter home. I mean, you're
I
just
shared
promoting
the
Elon at this point, man. Just go
Twitter
use the
homepage.
website. Yeah.
Yeah, you can
All
find
right,
me on
awesome.
Twitter. Um,
Somewhere on there. If you guess the
yeah,
letters right in the search bar, you might be able to find them.
that's funny. All right, you
Alrighty,
guys
folks.
take
Take
care.
it
Thank
easy.
you again.
Bye bye.